What is something that makes you look past poor GPAs or DATs?
Nothing.
What's up, everybody? My name's Eli, and I'm a third-year dental student at Boston University Goldman School of Dental Medicine. Today, I'm filming a video with our Dean of Admissions, Dr. Robert Kasberg. I'm so thankful that he was willing to do this video with me. Today's video, we're going to be asking him some frequently asked questions about applying to dental school, getting into dental school, etc. So the reason I decided to do this video is because before, as I've mentioned, I personally think that Reddit, Student Doctor Network, and all of these online forums for pre-dents can be kind of toxic at times. A lot of people go on there looking for advice just to get advice from people who aren't qualified, who are trying to discourage them, or who simply just don't know what they're talking about. And although these forums could serve a good purpose, at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, the answers you're getting aren't really from a credible source. So I had people submit questions to me on Instagram, and I also allowed people to ask questions on Reddit, gathered up a list, sent them to Dr. Kasberg, and he agreed to answer them for a YouTube video for my channel. So about to head to school to Dr. Kasberg's office. He's going to answer some of your questions. It'll be like an interview style video, and I hope you all find this helpful. Again, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, etc. Maybe if there's enough comments with additional questions, we could do a little part 2 with Dr. Kasberg. Well, it's time to go to school. So everybody, like I mentioned, I'm here with Dr. Robert Kasberg. He is the current Dean of Admissions at my school, Boston University Goldman School of Dental Medicine. He has been here for 2 years, but previously he was the Dean of Admissions and the Dean of Student Affairs at Tufts University for 10 years. And he was at Indiana University for 10 years as the Dean of Admissions and Dean of Student Affairs as well. So I decided to compile a list of questions that were asked by people from Instagram as well as people from Reddit, bring them to Dr. Kasberg so that he can answer them for you all and you get answers straight from the source and not from other people that are basically in the same position as you are. So without further ado, Dr. Robert Kasberg.
Well, let me begin by thanking you for asking me to do this. I'm actually quite honored. And I want to applaud your efforts as a dental student. I know you're extraordinarily busy,
Yeah.
So to take on something additional, I think that's tremendous, and I applaud you for that. So I'm going to let you read these questions, but before we start, I'm going to go ahead and address the basic one, and what are the most common mistakes that pre-dental students and applicants make when applying to dental school. The biggest mistake by far is not really understanding, for those of you especially from a state with a state dental school, that the prerequisites, and I mean that in terms of coursework, but also in terms of shadowing hours, employment hours, extracurriculars, you don't have a good idea of what your state school wants, and those of you who do, you don't understand that the coursework, the prerequisite coursework, as well as those stipulations for shadowing and things like that, are not the same across dental schools. And so number one, make sure you understand what your state dental school, or if you're from a state with just a private school, the private school in your state, what is it exactly they're looking for in terms of grades, in terms of DAT scores, in terms of what courses they are requiring you to take, and what are their expectations of. They usually post their minimum, the minimum number of hours. You never want to be at the minimum, so I always recommend double the minimum. Okay, double the minimum, that looks far more impressive. The most difficult thing is when they give their average GPA, what you really want to try to know is what's the range of the GPAs they accept, all right? And so do your best to understand. Again, you never want to be at the minimum, all right? It's better to be in the middle or a little bit above the average, okay? But try to find that range out. The second big mistake is, as I said, making sure you should always have a plan for the hope for the best, plan for the worst. So always have about 2 or 3 fallback schools. Make sure you understand what their prerequisites are and what their minimums are in the different categories, because they will not be the same as your state school. And so you want to make sure that you're being competitive for as many schools as possible. All right. And then the third greatest mistake is applicants, for some reason, maybe not a lot, but many, think that they only should put things on that are dental related. All right, they only put on, if they're involved in extracurricular activity, they only put the pre-dental society. If they're engaged in community service and volunteerism, they only put things that they do that are dental related. If for employment, they only put on things that are related to dentistry. Huge mistake, because we want to look at you holistically, and if all you are all about dentistry, that is a turnoff. We want to see that you are broadly educated. We want to see that you're broadly experienced. We want to know that you have interest outside of the dental field, because guess what? Life is a whole lot different than just dentistry. So make sure that your application is very complete and broad, all right? Many dental schools will say don't put on work experience before college. I don't agree with that. You put down every job you ever had. Start with the most recent and work your way back through time, all right? Jobs that you held in high school or middle school are very important. It says a lot about your willingness to work. And in dental school, you're going to be doing a lot of work. Not employment, but work in terms of studying. Same thing with dental exposure. If you have a lot of shadowing in middle school or high school, put it on your application. But always start with the most recent. Work your way back through time, so those admissions officers who don't want to know what you're doing in middle school and high school, they can stop. All right. But for those of us who are very interested in your experiences, especially in those endeavors, make sure you put those. That is not true for extracurricular activity. It's not true for community service and volunteerism. We only look at what you've done from while you're in college moving forward. All right? Okay. So why don't you go ahead and fire off the questions here?
Okay. So a lot of these questions are good questions in my opinion.
Okay.
I sent you some for you to filter through, so I'm sure you thought they were pretty good as well.
I do.
The first one, I remember this one. This was asked on Reddit. How can you make yourself stand out as a community college student?
Okay. There's only one way you can make yourself stand out as a community college student, and that is to become a 4-year college student. I do not know a dental school in the country who admits applicants who only have community college experience. There was a time when dental schools, Indiana University, where I worked for 10 years, you did not need to have a bachelor's degree, but you did need 90 hours of college credit from a 4-year institution. And so if all you have in your background is community college credit, you are going to need to enter a 4-year college. And most of us, as admissions officers, we want to see a lot of science work from a 4-year college. So let's say that you did all your prerequisites at a community college. Many, if not most, dental schools will accept those, but they will expect that you're doing 4-year college credit in biology, in chemistry, in physics. All right? Do you need to repeat all of those prerequisites? I would say if you did your physics courses at a community college, you'll need to do 1 physics course in a 4-year institution. Did you do all your chemistry prerequisites? If you did, then I'm going to say you're probably going to need to do 1 inorganic course at a 300 level and 1 organic course in a 4-year college. And biology is easy. There are so many different biology courses. I would recommend at least minoring in biology in a 4-year college. All right? I don't care how many hours you had at community college. In that 4-year institution, at least minor. Yeah, you can be an anthropology major or something like that. But make sure you have a strong background in biology. Every dental school in the country, the first year or 2 is heavily based on the basic medical sciences, which are biology based. Next question.
So I'm going to go a little bit out of order just because I think that question segued well into this one. Does majoring in a STEM major in undergrad boost your application as opposed to non-STEM majors?
Actually, it does not. Okay. You can make. I've had majors in music. I've had majors in art. I've had majors in psychology, the liberal arts, languages, Spanish, for instance, who've done very well, but they minored in biology. All right. And depending on, I mean, if somebody's a Spanish major, I know they're going to be able to treat a wider patient pool. And if they have a great GPA and a really high biology GPA, that's just as valuable as getting a bachelor's degree in biology. And along these lines, if you're going to major in biology, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you minor in a social science or a second language, all right, because those complement one another, all right. If you're going to major in anthropology or psychology or sociology or Spanish or history or anything like that, as I've already said, make sure you minor in biology so you have that strong biology background. So what we're looking for is an education that's broadly based. If all you have is a biology major and a chemistry minor, most of my applicants have that, and so that does not make you look outstanding. It makes you look average. Okay, if you want to look outstanding, if you want to stand above the average applicant who has a biology major and a chemistry minor, then what you want to do is, like I said, major in either a life science and then minor in a sociology, in a social science or a language, or reverse, major in a language or a social science or art or something that you could relate to dentistry, and then minor in biology. If you really want to stand out, you'll double major. Okay? Difficult to do, very few people do it. That's the definition of standing out, making yourself look a cut above the majority of applicants, very few of whom double major. And it's even better if that double major is biology as an example, or you could say anatomy, physiology, but biology is broader based. And then your minor is in, your other double major is in something like a social science or a second language. Those are so completely different that it makes you look really, really unique.
Okay. Third question. Besides a master's program or a post-bac, how can applicants strengthen their application during a gap year?
Okay, it's a great question. It really depends on what your weakness is, all right? If your weakness is your GPA falls below a 3.3, and I mean that as a cumulative GPA as well as a biochemistry, biology, chemistry, physics GPA, we look very strongly at that GPA. Biochemistry, biology, chemistry, physics GPA. ADSES calculates that, and we look very strongly at that. If it falls below a 3.3, many dental schools, us included, will not look at your application very seriously. We want to make sure you're strong in those areas, those subject areas, so you'll do well in dental school. So if your weakness is GPA related, there isn't anything you can do to improve your application except do a pre-professional master's program. Okay, and I want to emphasize that. Yes, you can do more shadowing. You can work as a dental assistant. You can get to work in a dental lab. That's not going to help your application if the weakness is academic. All right? There are many pre-professional master's programs that are outstanding. There are more that aren't outstanding. Many dental schools now have programs that feed into their dental schools. Here at BU, for instance, we have the Master's in Oral Health Science. It's a year, and you're taking classes with dental students. All right? And so if you do well in that, it's a feeder program for us. Midwestern, I think they have a couple. Rutgers has one. Many dental schools do. I personally think the best one in the country, whether it's dental school or not, is a school in Clinton, Mississippi called Mississippi College. Both at IU and at Tufts, I've had individuals graduate, class valedictorian who came from Mississippi College. Barry University in Hollywood, Florida is also very good. I used to offer admissions to 40 or 50 of those students every year. And not all of them matriculated, but a healthy number did, and all of them made it through the program fairly easily. So if it's academic, you're going to have to do a pre-professional master's program, all right? If it's not academic, if you don't have For me, community service and volunteerism is extraordinarily important. And if you have a very weak background in community service and volunteerism, it's going to be very difficult to get an interview here. If you're going to take a gap year purely because you need a break, which if you do, I highly encourage you to take a gap year. I think gap years are incredibly valuable. So let's say your academics are strong and you really don't want to do a master's program. That's okay. Do something dental related. Dental assisting is fine. Probably a little better is if you can get a job in a dental lab and actually be working on your micromotor skills and learning how to do the things we're going to teach you to do in dental school, which probably very few of you have experience in that. That's a good thing to do. But while you're working as a dental assistant or in a dental lab, make sure you're increasing your community service and volunteerism. And it's not clearing a hurdle. Find something that is meaningful to you and is sustained over time, and devote yourself to that during your gap year. And it's a great idea to take one class in the fall and one class in the spring. And I would recommend something that's at a 400 level, something that's maybe histology or physiology related, or maybe another biochemistry. Reach out to dental students and ask them, okay, if was there one subject area you wish you had more exposure to as an undergraduate? And ask them for 3 or 4 classes, and then follow their advice and throw yourself into that while you're working either as a dental assistant or as a dental lab tech, and engaging in meaningful and sustained community service and volunteerism.
And if you're looking for someone to ask, my answer to that is anatomy.
With a cadaver lab if possible.
Yeah, definitely. So will applying while missing prereqs hinder one's application? And this is assuming that they will still be done before they commute.
Okay, it's a great question, and it's not an easy answer. Because I could easily say to you that the vast majority of applicants probably have not done biochemistry or the 2 physics classes. They're applying after their junior year, and many applicants have not taken, they hold off physics and biochemistry till their 4th year, so that's not unusual. So yes, it's okay to apply without all your prerequisites, all right? Having said that, however, if your GPA is marginal, if it's hovering around a 3.3 or 3.4, especially that biochemistry, biology, chemistry, physics GPA, if that's hovering around a 3.3, 3.4, and you haven't taken those last 3 prerequisites, most admissions officers at best are going to say, let's hold the application till we see grades for those courses, all right? Because the DAT is based on 2 courses, the 2 introductory courses in biology, the 2 general chemistry courses, which you should take your freshman year anyway, and the organic chemistry course, which you take sophomore year. If you don't have those, I don't know how you're going to do the DAT successfully, all right? And so I would say minimally you want to make sure you have those 5 courses completed by the end of your sophomore year. Take your DAT the summer between your sophomore and junior year, okay? And then spend your junior year taking as many biology courses as you can. You can hold off on the biochemistry and the physics. Many people do that. Many applicants do that. But make sure your grades are strong, because if your grades aren't strong, below a 3.6, I would say, a guy like me and many other admissions officers are going to say, I need to see what those fall grades are, because physics and biochemistry, those are not easy subject areas.
Okay. What is something that makes you look past poor GPAs or DATs?
Nothing. I just want to be honest with you.
I tell people this all the time.
I will say this. When I was at Tufts, I developed a program called the Conditional Deferred Admissions Program. All right, and I believe that program is still running. And if somebody demonstrated everything that I was looking for in an applicant as a human being, a strong work background, meaningful and sustained community service and volunteerism, extracurricular activity that was extraordinary with leadership, okay? If somebody had everything I was, and I could say, I know this person, I'm reasonably convinced that this person is going to be a great dentist who puts her patient's best interest ahead of her own, I would admit that person to the conditional deferred admissions program. And they get an offer of admission, but it was conditional upon them finishing a one-year master's, because their GPA, I'm looking at that saying, I don't think they're going to be successful in dental school. So I want them to know that they can handle dental school by doing a one-year pre-professional master's program. All right. So that's the only thing that I would say, okay, if I look past the GPA, it would be, now I can't do that here. There's some reasons why I can't do that program here. But many admissions officers are very interested in your background in those areas. And if you had to work your way through college and you have this great background in community service volunteerism and you're a leader, they're going to say to you, we're interested in you, but you need to prove to yourself that academically you can handle this, and so you're going to need to do a pre-professional master's program. And what's important to me is that I bring somebody on board not convinced that they can do this, and they flunk out, and they've lost $100,000, and they're in debt $100,000 because I didn't do my due diligence and was convinced that this person's demonstrated to me and themselves they can do this. And so that's something that I think all admissions officers carry very heavily, is when we're giving an offer of admission, we're saying to applicants, we're convinced that you can do this. Now, you got to do the work. You have to be emotionally strong. You have to have resiliency, because it's not going to be easy. You got to stop wearing your wishbone where your backbone should be. You got to come in here and make hay, not excuses. But based on what we see in your application, we're reasonably convinced that you can do this. And that's I don't have a stressful job, but I do carry it with me that when a student isn't successful, did I miss something? Did I make a mistake? Usually don't, though. Okay.
Okay. Next question is, what makes a good personal statement?
Oh, be true to yourself. Don't try to think what an admissions officer or a interviewer wants to hear. Be true to yourself. I'm not a dentist. I'm an anthropologist. I don't know why anybody wants to work in other people's mouths for the rest of their lives. All right? I admire all of you. I'm not denigrating the profession. I think it's great, because I go to the dentist all the time. All right? But there's a story about why you want to be a dentist, and that's your job, is to tell the story about why you want to be a dentist. And the extracurriculars and the community service and the shadowing that you put on the application in kind of a bare bones fashion, you weave that into your narrative, okay? What's the defining factor that you said, aha, this is what I want to do, all right? And I am going to be a caring, compassionate dentist who puts my patient's best interest ahead of myself. Easy to say, but when you link that back to what you've listed in terms of your community service volunteerism, very, very powerful.
Okay. This is a good one. This is probably a question I would have asked as well. Does a student's undergrad institution play a part in their acceptance?
That really, for me, nada. Okay, not at all. But there are other schools that they put weight on the school that you attended, all right? I think it's elitist, to be quite honest with you. It's not really about the school you attend. It's about the courses you take at that school and the course loads you take in that school. And I won't share with you some of the things I know, because I have my PhD from Yale and I was a teaching assistant at Yale, and I could tell you some stories, all right? And so I have inside knowledge and experience that says, I am impressed when somebody gets into an Ivy or a great school in quotation marks. But I'm more impressed when I'm dealing with somebody who goes to IUPUI or UMass Boston, and they've had to work their way through school, okay? Or they had to raise a child or take care of an ill sibling or a parent. There's more to that than, okay, what school did you go to? So I don't wait, but other programs do. And so you kind of, I don't know if they share that information with you. Probably not. I think it's elitist, and I don't do it. And I think the DAT is elitist too, by the way. And I don't put a lot of focus on the DAT. A lot of schools are pressured, a lot of admissions officers are pressured, usually by the head of the university, that they want the average DAT to be as high as possible. If you're more than a DAT score to me. And for me, more important than DAT are those non-cognitives. Community service, volunteerism, extracurricular activity, employment. That's what gives me insights to who you are. DAT tells me nothing about you.
So, perfect segue to the next question. Does having a subsection under 18 on the DAT play a key role if your overall DAT score is pretty good?
At some schools, maybe, but in most, no, not. Most schools look at academic average, total science, and reading comp. Okay. Sometimes PAT, it's really mixed among us admissions officers. For many of us, it doesn't tell us anything about you. For others, they say, well, for their school it does. So I have to be a little bit careful about the PAT. I think quantitative reasoning nobody looks at very seriously, and most applicants, that's their worst score anyway. But reading comp, I think, is very important. If you can read, you can learn. What I do with the DAT is if your biology GPA is low, and I glance over at the biology DAT and it's real low too, well, that's a double negative, and it's telling me you need to do a pre-professional master's program. But in general, for most of us, the subsections are not nearly as important as academic average, total science, reading comp, and for some schools, PAT. But an 18 is not a poor score, by the way. Neither is a 17.
Right. I have a confession, because a lot of new people may watch this video that haven't watched my channel before. I got a 15 on the inorganic chemistry section on the DAT, and because my total science was an 18, my academic average was a 21, my PAT was 22, my reading comprehension was 29, I didn't want to retake the exam just for one subsection.
Yeah.
So I chose not to, because my state school, which is University of Maryland, has a cutoff of 16 for every subsection. Ooh. That eliminated me from my state school. Yeah. But I still decided not to take that risk and retake it. I still received interview invitations at 6 out of the 12 schools I applied to. So.
And you are, what, a third-year dental student now?
Yep, a couple months until fourth year.
What does the DAT, especially that one subsection? I wonder what the science is. And Maryland might have, maybe they've done a statistical analysis and it shows that below a 16 in any subsection is an indicator of a student's not going to be successful. Every dental school is unique, and I need to emphasize that. So I'm not chastising Maryland, but right. That's not something that I would do.
Can a good DAT score outweigh a poor GPA?
Again, school specific. There have been times when I have not interviewed somebody and I asked them to apply to our conditional deferred admission. When I was at Tufts, I asked them to apply. I suggested they apply to our conditional deferred admissions program. They had very high DAT scores, and there were schools that accepted them as is. And so it really is school specific. For a person like me, that the DAT doesn't tell me anything. When I'm looking at a transcript, that's something that you have worked on over time management skills, involved in a lot of different things, juggling multiple tasks, deadlines, obligations. That tells me far more about you than a DAT. And so a very high DAT, maybe mama or papa gave you $10,000 and you got one of these illegitimate DAT test programs that artificially inflated your ability to do well on the test because they somehow access unreleased questions, which is highly unethical. And maybe that's why your DAT scores are high. So the DAT is for me personally is not, but there are many schools out there that will overlook poor GPAs.
So the next question would be, how does BU view students who have completed a master's and have performed far better post-graduation from their bachelor's degree?
Well, I bring that with me. I don't even look at your undergraduate record if you've done a master's. All right. If you have gone to, especially if it's a master's program that I highly recommend, the OHS program here at BU, Mississippi College down in Clinton, Mississippi, Barry University in Hollywood, Florida, any of the dental schools, Midwestern, Rutgers, all those if you do well, and what I mean by well, if you have a 3.6 or higher in any of those, I'll go as low as 3.3 sometimes, depending on what your course load was like. I don't even look at your undergraduate GPA, all right? I'm such a big believer in those master's programs that by the time I left Tufts 2 years ago, close to 60% of the student body had graduated from pre-professional master's programs. And the attrition rate was minimal for them because they've done that work, all right? Now, having said that, what most dental schools do is and ADSES does this for them. ADSES shows your undergraduate GPA, it shows your graduate GPA, and then it combines the two and it shows a GPA that's cumulative for both your undergrad and your graduate. And again, we look mostly at the biochemistry, biology, chemistry, physics GPA. And if it's below a 3.3 or a 3.0, depending on the school, they will not even give you an interview. And so it's up to you to kind of figure out, okay, what are the schools that will really focus on my master's GPA, especially if that combined puts you below a 3.0. And it's really unfair because a master's degree is going to be, 30 some odd hours, where your undergraduate degree is 130, I think. And so sometimes it's real difficult to get above that 3.0 threshold, let alone a 3.3 threshold. So that's why I completely ignore the undergraduate and I focus on the graduate, all right? And there are a handful of schools, the admissions officers are like me, and they're more interested in, we're not interested in yesterday's news, that's the undergrad. We're interested in today's news, that's the graduate GPA. We do kind of have to glance at the DAT, and so I have been known to take, if somebody had a 4.0 at one of these programs that I really highly respect, if their total science is a 15, I still took them when I was at Tufts. And they did perfectly fine. Okay, I'm very unique in that. I don't know of anybody else who does that, but a lot of schools will go as low as a 16 total science, 16 academic average. I shouldn't say a lot, a handful. It's your job to kind of figure that out and navigate that.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but how heavily do admissions weigh aspects like working part-time in school or being like a first-generation college student? Huge, absolutely huge. Any admissions officer worth their salt, if they're looking at an application, they're trying to figure out, okay, it's not just about the grades. It's about time management. And you can be a 4.0, but if you've not done anything, you better be a 4.0. Even if it's research, I mean, okay, you did a 4.0, you did a lot of research. Okay, dental school is more than that, all right? Dental school is about juggling time management. It's like going back to high school. You're going to be in school at 8 o'clock, you're going to leave, at 4 or 5 days a week? Sometimes 7.
Sometimes 7, okay? And so looking at the time management, and that can be manifested in Division I sports, Division II sports, an athlete who's been able to earn good grades while participating like that, somebody who's had to work full-time or part-time to get through dental school, somebody who's devoted themselves to extracurricular. We do the best we can to see, okay, are they manifesting great time management skills? And there's a question on the application, actually, that says, was your education ever interrupted or adversely impacted by factors other than academic difficulty or ethical violations or something like that, okay? And anybody who had to work more than 25 hours a week, they should check yes on that and say, for whatever reason, I had to work 25, 30, 40 hours a week. And although I developed a great ability to prioritize and superior time management skills, it did impact my ability to earn better grades and participate more widely in extracurriculars. It's a great answer to that question. All right. So look at that question, and if you can honestly say that your grades and your ability to participate were adversely impacted because you had to work, then you need to check yes on that question. Did I answer that?
Yes.
Both sides of that? Okay.
Definitely. So last question. I think it's a great question. how much of a role do interviews play in the admissions process, and how does one stand out in an interview?
Okay. Yeah, I've seen a lot of great applicants be unsuccessful because of their interview. Okay. Number one, especially for this current generation, you need to understand what the word formal means and what it means to appear formal. And an interview is extraordinarily formal. You better be dressed formally. Okay? And that, guys, guess what? That means a tie and it means a suit coat. Okay? Young ladies and older ladies, if it's an in-person interview, dress like it's an interview for a job rather than for a dance hall. Okay? Dress professionally. Comport yourself professionally. Interviews can be very relaxing, and people start to slouch, and then before you know it, they're speaking in a dialect that you use when you're hanging around with your buddies who work construction or in the factory. I've heard people cuss during an interview. I thought, what the hell, and no, that will sabotage. It is a formal, maintain a sense. Now, I don't mean to be a stiff shirt. You can laugh. You can, there's times you can be humorous, but don't do anything that would taint that interview. Don't do anything that would distract from that interview. Yes, you can have a beard. Yes, you can wear your hair in different ways. All right. But in terms of how you're dressed, your posture, how you speak, all that can sabotage you. All right. Believe it or not, there are a fair number of applicants who cannot explain why they want to be a dentist. All right. Like I said, you're going to be working in people's mouths for the rest of your life. You better convince the interviewer that you know what you're to some extent, you know what you're getting yourself into. All right. Also, know something about the school you're applying to. All right. If you're from California and you're applying to schools in Boston, know something about the Boston school. Know something a little bit about Boston. You have something called the internet. It's very easy to learn things about the school, about the community, and you can ask some questions based on the research you have done about the school. You'd be surprised the number of times that people have lost interviews because they knew nothing about the school. All right. Lastly, and I know I've said this ad nauseum, if you do not come across as a caring and compassionate individual, you can ruin an interview. All right. Dentistry, a lot of people say it's not a business, it's a practice. Okay, it's a practice. It's also a business, because if you don't meet the bottom line and you can't pay your employees and you can't buy equipment and you can't buy materials and you can't pay the rent, you go bankrupt. By definition, that's a business. And so dentistry is this very odd situation where as dentist you will need to make money, but you're also taking care of people's oral health. Okay, what do you do when somebody can't afford the procedures they need? All right. And so if you don't come across as a caring and compassionate individual who's going to put your patient's best interest ahead of your own, you can easily fail an interview. All right. Which brings me back to a point, and I say this respectfully. If you're majoring in biology and you're minoring in business or economics, you better be able to prove through your community service and volunteerism that you're a caring and compassionate individual. Because that combination, to me, makes it look like you're worried about the bottom line and nothing else.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, we made it through all the questions.
Did we?
And I was a little nervous because I realized I didn't bring any backup batteries, but my battery is still fully charged, thankfully. Again, I can't thank you enough for doing this video. Honestly, this is something that's kind of been in my mind since I started dental school. Honestly, part of the reason I started this channel was because of Tyrell and Tyler that were at Tufts. Yeah. And I think when I was applying, they did a video with Dr. Why is her name slip? It starts with
Dr.
an H.
Holloway?
Yes, Holloway.
Sure.
A kind of regarding the same thing, just asking, you know, what can pre-dents do to get into dental school, etc. And of course, I don't, you know, just like taking other people's ideas, but I have already made videos previously about my personal thoughts of Reddit and Student Doctor Network, so I felt like this would be a good video to follow up on that.
I think it's a great idea, and I applaud you for it. I'm honored that you thought of me, but I forgot something. One of the biggest mistakes that applicants make when they're unsuccessful, they think they don't have a chance to get into dental school. Absolutely untrue. We like to see perseverance, persistence, and resiliency. And so applicants who take that extra step and get into a pre-professional master's program, if they do well academically, not only are they demonstrating they have the ability academically to get through dental school, they're demonstrating that they have the desire, the commitment, the perseverance, the persistence, and the resiliency. All of those are almost as important as having the academic ability to handle the material. And I'm sorry about that.
No,
it just came to my 70-year-old mind.
No, again, all important things.
Yes.
And I think that this video is going to be very beneficial for a lot of pre-dental students. I know it's something that I would have loved to see when I was applying or before I applied, even just being in college. But I think it's important, like getting answers straight from the source. I think a lot of people are nervous about emailing admissions officers their questions, and sometimes people just go on those networks and want their ego stroked or whatever it may be. But to be able to get some clear and concise answers from someone that matters, someone that can actually give you answers that matter and not a random username online, I think is extremely important. So again, just thank you so much for doing this video and helping make this video happen, and so quickly as well.
You're welcome.
I'm really
All right.
thankful, because I definitely emailed you about it maybe only a week ago, and
Yeah,
we've
well,
already got it done.
Don't waste time. Okay?
Yeah.
And I applaud all of you who have the aspiration to move from undergrad into professional school, especially in dentistry. It says a lot about who you are, and I wish all of you continued success and happiness. Thank you.
All right, and that's all.
All right.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kasberg.
You're welcome.
All right, so there you guys go, straight from the source. We got some answers for some pre-dents straight from Dr. Kasberg. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you are someone that asked a question, thank you for submitting questions. I think this video was very, very informative and beneficial for all of you. So that's all for this video. Make sure you stick around to watch more vlogs and other videos on my channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.